Yes. Oh man. Let me get to this story here. Donald Trump literally just kidnapped Venezuela's president. Donald Trump just straight up jacked Venezuela's president. And to just show you how surreal all this is, I want you to listen to what Donald Trump had to say about it, because we're living in bizarro world. This is pretty incredible.
Okay, thank you very much. This is big stuff. We appreciate you being here. Late last night and early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela. Overwhelming American military power, air, land, and sea, was used to launch a spectacular assault. And it was an assault like people have not seen since World War II. It was a force against a heavily fortified military fortress in the heart of Caracas to bring outlaw dictator Nicolas Maduro to justice. This was one of the most stunning, effective, and powerful displays of American military might and competence in American history. And if you think about it, we've done some other good ones, like the attack on Soleimani, the attack on al-Baghdadi, and the obliteration and decimation of the Iran nuclear sites just recently in an operation known as Midnight Hammer. All perfectly executed and done. No nation in the world could achieve what America achieved yesterday, or frankly in just a short period of time. All Venezuelan military capacities were rendered powerless as the men and women of our military, working with U.S. law enforcement, successfully captured Maduro in the dead of night. It was dark. The lights of Caracas were largely turned off due to a certain expertise that we have. We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela, and that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland. We can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country.
So what you just heard is Donald Trump essentially admitting that he kidnapped Venezuela's president to take their oil. Like, seriously. They kidnapped the head of a sovereign nation, President Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, and they injured his wife. They injured his wife as well, kidnapped them, put them on a plane to the United States, carried out air and ground strikes again on a sovereign nation, and kidnapped the president of a foreign nation. They are claiming now. Why would he do that? They're claiming that they apprehended Maduro and his wife on long-standing criminal charges, included alleged narcotics and terrorism related crimes. they are claiming that it's a narco state, that Venezuela is a narco state. Anybody knows that that's complete nonsense. Okay, whatever drugs are in Venezuela are just the drugs that America helped put in Venezuela. Maduro's indictment is alleging that he's been trafficking drugs since 1999. 1999. Now, the reason that is insane is because the CIA in this country actually brought 3,000 pounds of cocaine into Caracas, Venezuela in 1990. 1990. The CIA actually created a drug cartel called the Cartel of the Suns. And this is the gang that Donald Trump is claiming that Nicolas Maduro is leading. Now, you may not believe me, but you guys know I keep receipts. I keep receipts. This is a report from 60 Minutes in 1993 about this very topic. This very topic right here. This is from 60 Minutes in 1993, mind you, about what our CIA was doing in Venezuela.
Ton of cocaine, pure cocaine worth hundreds of millions, is smuggled into the United States. Sound familiar? Not the way this ton of cocaine got here. According to what the former head of the Drug Enforcement Administration told Mike Wallace, this drug shipment got here courtesy of what he calls drug trafficking by the CIA in partnership with the Venezuelan National Guard.
Let me understand what you're saying. A ton of cocaine was smuggled into the United States of America by the Venezuelan National Guard?
Well,
in cooperation with the CIA?
That's exactly what appears to have happened.
Until last month, Judge Robert Bonner was the head of the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA. And Judge Bonner explained to us that only the head of the DEA is authorized to approve the transportation of any illegal narcotics like cocaine into this country, even if the CIA is bringing it in.
Let me put it this way, Mike. If this has not been approved by DEA or an appropriate law enforcement authority in the United States, then it's illegal. It's called drug trafficking. It's called drug smuggling.
So what you're saying, in effect, is the CIA broke the law. Simple as that.
I don't think there's any other way you can rationalize around it.
Back in the 1980s, the CIA was mandated by then-President Reagan to develop intelligence on the Colombian drug cartels. And so the CIA, with Venezuela's Guardia Nacional, or National Guard, set up an undercover operation, a drug smuggling operation in Venezuela that could handle the transshipment of the Colombian cartel's cocaine on its way to market. Annabelle Grimm was a DEA agent with 18 years' experience when she was made agent in charge in Caracas. And she says that the CIA station chief, James Campbell, and this man, Mark McFarland, the CIA officer in charge at the center, told her that to keep the undercover smuggling operation credible, they had to keep the cartel happy. And the way to do that was simple. Deliver their dope, untouched by U.S. law enforcement, to the cartel's distributors, their dope dealers in the United States.
The CIA and the Guardia Nacional wanted to let cocaine go on into the traffic without doing anything. They wanted to let it come up to the United States, no surveillance, no nothing.
In other words, you weren't going to stop them in Miami or Houston or wherever. These drugs were simply going to go to the United States and then go into the traffic and eventually reach the streets.
That's what they wanted to do, yes. I look at that 1,000 kilos, at least that 1,000 kilos. I look at the fact, I mean, Mike, you're a taxpayer, and that was U.S. taxpayer money that built that center, that funded it, that maintained it. And I really take great exception to the fact that that 1,000 kilos came in funded by U.S. taxpayer money, and it hit the streets of the United States. I find that particularly appalling when you look at all the damaged lives that 1,000 kilos represents.
So once again, we have the CIA, the people who also worked with the Nicaraguan drug cartels in the 80s to basically cause the crack epidemic here in this country, in places like here in Gary and East Chicago and all of Chicago, particularly LA and New York. We see these same people creating a drug cartel to operate inside of Venezuela. And they're charging Maduro with drug trafficking. Do you see how ridiculous that sounds? and hypocritical it sounds. This is once again, a criminal entity. The CIA are the biggest criminals on the planet. I think you could probably go anywhere in the world and they'll tell you the same thing. And so they fabricated a drug cartel, fabricated a drug manufacturing industry within Venezuela, and then blamed it on their leadership. And the late, great Hugo Chavez actually said 20 years ago, yeah, this is what they're going to do. They're going to say I'm a drug dealer. They're going to accuse me of being a drug dealer. And that's true. That's absolutely true. You know, unfortunately, he didn't live long enough to see the full realization of the Bolivarian revolution in Colombia. And again, Maduro has not been a great leader in a lot of ways. I'm not saying that he's, you know, completely innocent of anything, but it's important to state that most of the issues that they have are due to our government, whether it's the CIA or sanctions from this government. Now, after they kidnapped the president of a sovereign nation and brought him to New York, the acting president, Delcy Rodriguez, was sworn in after Maduro was removed from power. She, as the spokeswoman of the Venezuelan government, now I guess the acting president, has condemned the attack as an illegal act of aggression and declared national mourning. Now, they say that they are searching for anyone who they accused of aiding this Operation Absolute Resolve. That's what our government's calling it in Venezuela. They're looking for anybody who are collaborators. But learning what I've learned about Delcy Rodriguez makes me think that maybe she may have had something to do with this as well and may have just sold Maduro out. That's why the Trump administration is so comfortable putting her in charge. Her and her brother Jorge, who was up until now the head of Venezuela's legislative body, her brother is actually one of the most powerful behind-the-scenes players in Venezuela. He always had a key position, even going back to the Chavez administration. He was the head of Venezuela's National Electoral Council. So he oversaw the voting process in Venezuela for years. He was also the mayor of Caracas at one point. He also pushed his sister, Delcy Rodriguez, into Chavez's government. And Hugo Chavez briefly took her on as his chief of staff. That was her first taste of, power in the government. She is looked at as more of a manager, more so than a pure believer of the Bolivarian revolution or she's not really a full Chavista. And it's also very suspicious to me that Delcy Rodriguez, though the vice president was not charged with anything, they pretty much charged everybody in Venezuela's government with something. They charged, obviously, Maduro, his wife, his son, and plenty of different other people. But for some reason, they didn't charge Delcy Rodriguez. And then you learn that Hugo Chavez actually fired this woman and ousted her completely from the government and said, don't come back ever again. He wanted nothing to do with Delcy Rodriguez. It was not until after he died that she was brought back in with her brother Jorge as a part of a deal that Maduro made with them, to help him maintain power. She's a lawyer. And so, yeah, she was actually Chavez's minister. She actually started off with Maduro in his administration as the Minister of Communication and rose to foreign minister. And so she seemed to be a very calculating, ambitious person. Again, she sang a lot of stuff to try to keep the peace in Venezuela. But if you look at what she's allowing Trump to do, or what Trump is telling her to do, or Trump is telling her he's going to do, there doesn't seem to be much pushback. She's saying, oh, we're going to fight this and we demand our president back to the public. But it doesn't seem like that she's too keen on actually following through on anything that will upset Donald Trump, which is why for right now she is being put in charge. But it is very important to understand that the United Nations have said that the strikes on Venezuela absolutely violate international law, because there was no UN authorization or consent from Venezuela. Russia, China, Cuba, many other countries have condemned these operations as unlawful. So why? Why Venezuela? Why Venezuela? We talked about this a few months ago when I first I did a segment on Venezuela. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves on the planet. The largest proven oil reserves on the planet. And so what is the first thing Trump did? He seized oil tankers linked to Venezuelan trade, including one that had a Russian flag on it, which is all kinds of bad. Venezuela also has huge, vast resources, including gold. They have all kinds of heavy metals, aluminum. There's a massive industry in Venezuela of rare earth elements. So that is important to understand, again, why they are doing this. Wall Street is already considering the possible investment opportunities following the capture of Maduro, which, again, is as predictable as it gets. War is a racket, as Smedley Butler said. Now, the Wall Street Journal actually interviewed one of the investors. His name is Charles Myers. Now, you never guess what Charles Myers is. He's one of the biggest Democratic Party donors. So if you want to know why the Democrats sound so pathetic on these strikes and don't want to sound like they're condemning it too much, it's because their donors, the people that own them, also are very much in favor of this. And so they asked the incoming governor of Venezuela, who's a Democrat, Abigail Spanberger, about this. And of course, you know, she didn't have anything much to say about it.
I come at this opinion as a former national security person, a former CIA officer, and then I, of course, served on the House Intelligence Committee.
So, of course, again, the Democratic governor of Virginia is CIA and served on the National Surveillance Committee or whatever the hell it was. I'm just saying, for people who think that these parties are diametrically opposed, they're not. These people are in it together, but I digress.
And so I actually have far more questions than I have seen answered, at least in public reporting, about what happened, the authorizations around it, reporting to Congress. And certainly I expect to see vigorous oversight within the halls of Congress in the coming months. I think there is a lot that the American people and importantly Congress and its oversight capacity need to know about what planning took place and frankly what's the path forward. What is the goal as we see efforts to prosecute Maduro here in the United States? What does that mean for the country and its future? And frankly, what is it that the President of the United States wants to commit the American people to?
So again, the Democratic Party is basically useless. You just saw one of the most brazen violations of international law, probably in any of our lifetimes, the out and out kidnapping of a head of state. And instead of saying, well, this is horrific and, you know, this is a horrific violation of international law and we should like let him go, considering that, you know, he's not American. Why is he being charged with machine guns? And they already dropped the cartel. They're already going to drop the cartel charges against Maduro because, as I showed you, the only cartel in Venezuela is the one that we helped create, the cartel of the Suns. But instead of actually saying that this is an outrage, you just can't go around kidnapping other countries' president. Is like more like, well, what's the plan? What are we going to do? And a big part of the reason is people like Charles Myers. Charles Myers, a huge Democratic Party donor, is an investor. He talked to the Wall Street Journal. He said he's planning a trip with officials from top hedge funds and asset managers to determine whether their investment prospects in the country under new leadership will feature some 20 official finance, energy, defense sectors. He said he will travel in March to meet with the new government, the new finance minister, the energy minister, and the head of the central bank and the stock exchange. They are saying that there's going to be between $500 billion and $700 billion in dollars in investment opportunities for foreign investors over the next 5 years in Venezuela. So you got to understand, this is a bipartisan thing. Voting for the corporate Democrats or the corporate Republicans is not going to solve this particular issue. This is a rotten two-party duopoly that we have here. This is why I'm so devoted to being against both parties here. A big part of this is the petrodollar. The petrodollar is an important part of helping to maintain the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve company. And if the thinking is that if American oil companies are the ones who are in control of these oil reserves, then that oil is continuing, and that oil is continuing to be denominated in U.S. dollars. At that point, it becomes a hindrance to the BRICS alliance, which Maduro was very much in bed with: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And again, they're trying to prevent that from happening because, again, all these countries around the world, I keep warning you guys, all of these countries are getting together to fight back against the United States. They are tired of being bullied. And Maduro had all this oil, 303, I believe, million barrels of oil. 303 million, I'm sorry. So, you know, it's important to understand that this can't be viewed as just another conflict or just another thing. This is literally flagrant violation of the international law. And let me just say this: the Venezuelan people are not going to take this line down. There's already been, you know, talk and footage of the military thinking that they're going to stage a coup. Look like they're about to try to stage a coup in Venezuela of the puppet that the United States has sort of placed in charge, Delcy Rodriguez. The Chavistas are not going to go away. So, and there's a lot, and it's not just them. The Colombians, South America is full of guerrilla groups and paramilitary groups that are trained, that like live for this. If you think that they're just going to be able to set up shop in Venezuela for the next 10, 15, 20 years, run it, and treat it like they did Cuba before Castro was in power, you're out of your damn mind. That is absolutely not going to happen. They won't let it happen. I'm also hearing some talk from people, some of the people, about how this is unprecedented. Actually, this isn't the first time that the United States has kidnapped another country's president in recent times. Unfortunately, again, you know, in 2004, George W. Bush kidnapped Haiti's president, John Baptiste Aristide, for the same reason. He thought Haiti's resources belonged to the Haitian people and not American corporations. And so we kidnapped him and said, you can't be the president of Haiti. This is what happens. You know, as I keep saying, this is a bipartisan affair. The Biden-Harris administration put a $25 million bounty on President Nicolas Maduro. They also put bounties on Interior Minister Diosdado Cabello and Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino. the Obama administration, going back to Barack Obama, targeted Venezuela with economic sanctions. And again, this happens anywhere where people think that the resources belong to the people and not American corporations. Before I go to this caller, I think it's important also to say that the Venezuelan government, just to show you how unfortunate this is, Citgo. I know you guys see all those Citgo stations, those Citgo gas stations. Well, that used to be owned by Venezuela's national oil company. Citgo actually used to heat homeless shelters here in America free of charge because our government would not do it. Hugo Chavez gave free heating and oil to hundreds of thousands of poor people in this country, in America, including 65 indigenous tribes, Native American indigenous tribes. And that's who our government saw as an enemy because of the Gusano industrial complex. I know everybody likes to complain about AIPAC, but very soon people will hate those South Florida, Miami, Cubans, Venezuelans, Brazilians, with the same level, the same passion that they do AIPAC, because they have the same right-wing mentality. Latin America is one of the most racist places on planet Earth. Their right wing is very similar to the right wing in this country. They just speak Spanish. That is it. That is how you get your Marco Rubios and your Ted Cruzes. And these people now, Donald Trump has handed over a large part of our government over to these people. And it's unfortunate to say that they are getting what they want. They're talking about overtaking Cuba now. And they might do it. They might actually do it. And other countries as well. So this is about the Gusano industrial complex. And it's also, again, it always goes back to in America, racism. Cuba, Venezuela, all these countries, they sided with the black people during apartheid. South Africa, Cuba specifically, fought with Angola and helped defeat the apartheid regime in Angola, which was the turning point in the apartheid struggle, according to none other than Nelson Mandela. That's why when Mandela got out of prison, the first thing he did was fly to Cuba to thank Fidel Castro personally for helping them to get rid of the apartheid government in South Africa. So it's important to understand where these things are geopolitically, who the real bad guys are. The real bad guys are the people who supported the apartheid South African government, who support the apartheid government in Israel, who supported Jim Crow, the apartheid government here in this country. It's always been the right wing. It will always be the right wing. So I'm just saying, let me get this call before I go to a commercial break. Hello, caller, what's up?
Yeah, what's happening, buddy?
It's all good.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know, Scott. Hey, Scotty, listen, this is what I want to... Now, you got that call, man. I was going to call and tease you about that sharky fish, man. You remember you said it, your parents, y'all like to go up there and get that catfish. Remember the sharkies you were telling me? You remember Mexico last year, maybe it was 2024 when we were talking about that catfish you were going up there, and I was telling you about they don't fry it in olive oil, they just fried in the regular oil.
Okay, right.
Yeah, well, that wasn't catfish you was eating. I don't know what it was. It was some other kind of fish. Quite better put it out there. And they were selling, I don't know what it's, squid or squad or whatever it is. That ain't catfish, and we got a good laugh out of it. I broke from the game, man. You had me upstairs. You done held me hostage, man. My wings done got cold. I told him to put me some fresh ones in the air fryer, man. So don't worry, I got 24 still in the air fryer ready to go. But listen, man, this is what I want to ask you. Remember when they said that Colombia, that's right next door to Venezuela, right?
Yes.
So, that's the best coca, man, in the world coming out of Peru and Colombia, you see. So, I don't know about all that down there, man. They got this guy, you know, that oil down there is more heavier than the oil that's coming out of Saudi Arabia. You know, theirs is more topical oil that's on the top. But I told you that maybe 10 years ago. By the time they get that oil out of the ground, you'll be 60 years old. You understand? You will be, man. They said it'd be 15. See, Chevron ain't going back down there. See, they got big stakes down there anyway. They were the last one to pull out. Chevron was. But hey, remember when you were saying this right here, Scotty, this right on topic with your thing. Remember when you was talking about the data centers, and you know that's my pet peeve right there, the data centers. I got people, their property value went down. They had a big, they had a big powwow out there at Hobart, and they don't want it down there, but they're gonna force feed us here with the data center because of what it does to the community. It brings down the property value. It does all kind of things to diminish the quality of life. You know, Jeff Bezos, he gonna get his way because he got a $500 million yacht where Leo DiCaprio was on. He threw a $50 million win. And I think if they put $500 million have been infused in Gary, Indiana downtown, and they send the right people here to set up camp and help us to run this city, think of what kind of metropolis this would turn into. It was a mini metropolis anyway. It was headed toward that, but it was derailed by drugs. You know, that's my thing right there. So, I'm going to tell you like this, man. You'll be 60 years old, and they won't even be using fuel in cars by the time you get 60 if the world lasts. It ain't going to even last that long, bro.
I heard that. Thank you for your call, brother. I got to go to a break. All right, folks. Good first hour. I can't believe the first hour is already almost over. We got to get to this next story, though. When we get back, we're going to talk about what the Somalian fraud story is really all about. And you might be shocked. Please stay with us here on WLTH 1370M. That's 92.7 in the FM dial. If you're nasty, right, Janet? We'll be right back after these.